This is the Tapped In Podcast, the podcast for beverage distributors that want to empower their sales team to drive business results. Listen up and welcome back to another episode of the Tapped In Sales Podcast, your podcast for beer distributors by beer distributors. I'm your host, with Moses here, Bud with Moneyball Ross, and we have Alicia as well. We have not given Alicia a nickname yet. Frankly, I'm scared to right now, Alicia. I don't want to disappoint you, and you are deserving of a good one. So I am taking my time and figuring that out.
It'll come. It'll be good.
I don't want to make it too lame, like what Mike's is. People like Mike's. So today we're going to get into some news stuff. Really, Ross, we've been talking about RNDC for quite some time now. When did this whole thing go down? Do you remember? It was late 2020? It was sometime in 2025 when the whole thing started to shake out with Sazerac.
Yeah, it started with California.
And then Tito's, and now we are here in mid-2026, and the end is nearing from a 40-state wholesaler down to just a few locations left as they piecemealed everything out. But the big question now comes to, it moves from what was or what is going to happen to RNDC now to what are the suppliers going to do post-RNDC, and how are they going to start to handle this? And Beer Business Daily started to talk about this week. Robobank, however you say his name, Brochard Nielsen, talked about what's going to be a big difference with what suppliers are used to having, basically three national players in Southern Glaciers, then RNDC and Breakthrough, and now with RNDC being cracked open like an egg, how the supplier game is going to change vastly. So Ross, you come from this world. You're in tune with this a little bit more. Alicia, you are as well versus me. What do you think that suppliers are going to have as the biggest challenge, or what do you think is going on in their corporate offices right now, Ross, as we move from what is going to happen to what has, and now how do we start to deal with it?
Well, let me turn that around and ask questions.
I love it.
Would we say that the general trend has been towards consolidation over the last four years?
As a wholesaler tier as a whole?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And would we say that this is potentially a bridge too far? In other words, do you think this will push us in a direction where we see the market fracture and more boutique people come in to service the market? Or do we think this will leave us with a duopoly?
Well, it wouldn't leave us with a duopoly. I mean, at least initially, it wouldn't leave us with a duopoly because there aren't two major players that cover all 50 states. So that would be hard. There might be a couple players that cover the key markets, right? New York, Florida, Texas, California, kind of that concept, Illinois. But I don't know if it's like a full-blown classical duopoly, Ross.
I guess I'm getting a roundabout way of saying, as a supplier, limiting your choices may have gone a bridge too far now. Right? I think consolidation was the trend in the direction we were heading. And I think for the most part, that benefited suppliers, right? I had one contact, one distributor across multiple states. I had alignment of spend. I had alignment of marketing. I had alignment of pricing, alignment of relationship. But what happens now is, yes, duopoly is not the right word, but we've limited choice significantly and across a lot of the country. So my knee-jerk reaction is that if I'm sitting there as a supplier, this might be a bridge too far. And quite frankly, there might be opportunity that's presenting itself for more small boutique entrants to come into play again, almost in a cyclical way,
The pendulum always swings.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, you live long enough and things come back into style.
Just like those gold glasses that I've been hanging on to from my grandfather for 60 years.
I'm still waiting for that suede jacket to be cool again.
So What's interesting about that take, Ross, is that there are a ton of distributors out there that have federal basic permits well beyond what would be, the core of the clients that we work with, or would be the bigger of the bigs, right? That have the relationship with the largest wine and spirit suppliers and the largest breweries across the country. So that is interesting that is more and more prevalent and is continuing to loosely kind of figure out how they're going to be much more akin to like 1930s, 1940s after Prohibition, where there was this huge segment of wholesalers that every single large county or reasonably large city had 2 or 3 or 4 distributors. Now we've kind of cycled it down where large regions of states or total states have just a handful. So that is a pendulum swinging back the other way. My philosophy on it right now, Alicia, too, is that I don't think suppliers are going to like this initially. They're not going to like the single point of contact. They're not going to like having to have the multi-point of contact. It's going to be a big investment in their world to start to manage all of these relationships with middle management or systems of middle management in some way. I don't think anybody wants to hire a bunch of middle managers right now to manage, what I had as 1 or 2 distributors, now 15 or 18 or 20. I think they're going to buck that early, but I like Ross's attitude of that maybe there is an opportunity. But you come from this world, Alicia. Where's your head at with it?
Well, I think that wine and spirit suppliers they're going to have to navigate the field in a way that they haven't before, especially with the products and segments that we're seeing move and growth behind, the RTDs, canned cocktails. Those are all drawing attention and growth from consumers. And those are all the spaces that beer distributors, dominate in the cold box, right? So when you get into the why, the conversation is always going to come back to the execution. Beer distributors have the relationships, the route frequency, they've earned the cold box space and, that real estate over time. And that's really attractive to these suppliers, these wine and spirit suppliers that are trying to scale brands really quickly. So I think that, it's going to be a positive in the long run. It's a different way, of them having to do business. But overall, the beer, market and market to and strategy in execution has always been the strength in our industry. So I just see this from my angle, working with distributors on their execution strategies. I'm just seeing more and more distributors think in terms of total beverage already. They're building their sales programs in a way that we're not just focusing on beer anymore. Those programs are inclusive of those RTD products, the non-alcs, the energies, and, the other adjacent categories that we're talking about right now. So we're ready for it. The market's ready for it, is my opinion of it.
Ross, would you be worried if you were one of those distributors that just picked up 1 or 2 states or 1 or 2 areas rather than like Reyes that got 11?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
I was going to, the angle I was going to where my mind started to go down after what Alicia just said was, put yourself in the position of a supplier and what would you do? I think that's an important way to think about it, right? So if I was starting a craft brewery right now in, let's say, Oregon, which I would never do that right now with the industry the way it is, but you've got Point Blank that got absorbed, you've got RNDC blown away, so you're basically left with very few options. I'd want to be with somebody like what Point Blank was, which was a brand builder, right? I wouldn't want to get lost in a big book, because I think that's the key term I'm going to use here, lost in a big book. And again, the more we consolidate, the more, you're looking at what Alicia said, which is, do I really want to manage all these freaking relationships across the country? No. But do I want to get lost in a book? No. So we've lost the middle ground. We've lost the balance. And, if I'm a small craft spirits producer, I might look at the AB or the Molson Coors network because I'm coming in with high profitability. I'm going to ask and see if they care about profitability. I'm going to come in there because I know I'm going to get treated better than I would in the big book, right? And if I'm wine importer or I'm a small producer in Oregon or California, probably going to look at a wine specialty house because on-premise is not going to be serviced properly in the big book because it's going to get lost. And it's not going to get serviced by Molson Coors AB wholesaler as well because they just don't know what they're talking about and they're just not servicing those high-end accounts. And some of them might even be non-buys. I don't mean that to be disrespectful to our beer distributors. It just wouldn't be the fit for me. So I think potentially we're entering a world that's out of balance, and out of balance equals opportunity. And opportunity on the distribution side and opportunity for suppliers to make moves. I didn't answer your question, but that's where my mind went based on what Alicia said.
Well, it's a good point at the end of the day of the out of balance around how you find the opportunities. Chaos is a terrible thing to waste, or a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And there are tons of opportunities. There is going to be some choppy waters in the short term for suppliers because they're not used to having that many relationships to manage. There are also other new things they're not used to too is, a lot of people don't know this, but like there were guaranteed buys, there were guaranteed programs, there was a whole method to the madness. You would have distributors selling suppliers to move from one distributor network to another by doing additional marketing spending and everything else. All that is toast. That is all out the window and toast, and is not coming back anytime soon. So those are all going to be challenges that suppliers are going to have to get to. And the other point that really dovetails into what Alicia said too is all the brands that moved and started this chaos around RNDC, they were what? Breakout, rockstar, utility brands. They were the biggest of the bigs. They didn't need the brand building efforts. They didn't need the kind of like normal, what a middle of the road or new to world brand is looking for. They were the utility, the Tito's, the Sazeracs of the world's like, we have brand recognition. We have organized marketing departments. We are creating the brands and the pull for ourselves. We need more of a logistics partner rather than a brand builder. And case in point, that Sazerac deal that everybody signed is a logistics partner deal, not a sales brand building deal.
Well, strategically, it was a great move. I mean,
it's brilliant.
But it's only a great move until you get followed. And I think Sazerac's move is great, but over time, I don't think it's a good strategy. Because others are going to follow, and then there's going to be competition among profitability, especially amongst the distributors that care about profitability. And again, every day we go out there and fight for distributor profitability. So I'm a little biased there, but I think over time that strategy will fail.
Yeah.
But today it's a smart strategy.
Sazerac long-term probably reorganizes themselves around variable profitability versus a flat pattern would be my bet to make sure they keep priority status at the size and scale they are.
I don't think they're going to decide to do that. They'll be forced to do it.
Yeah. Yep. They'll have to come to that conclusion. If Bill Goldring listens, we're taking consulting gigs, right, Ross? So,
hey, they got first mover advantage. So what's that saying? When the sun shines, what's the saying?
Something about sunshine on my ass.
Sun shines. I don't know.
Something like that. I don't know that saying, Ross.
Oh shit! Why don't you ask Claude?
I did have somebody in the world just tell my wife that the sun always shines on your husband's ass, and I still haven't decided if that's a compliment or not, but I'm going to take it as one. Let's move forward to last 9 weeks have been down. Beer Business Daily and Beer Marketers Insights have both talked about this. How are the numbies shaking out for June month to date? What's the sentiment in the market? Let's just talk about sentiment in the market, Alicia, from the clients that you're working with right now.
I would say that there is a lot of optimism still going into 4th of July, getting ready and gearing up for some pretty big holidays in beverage industry. So wish the numbers would have been better, but still a lot of optimism out there.
Yeah. Ross, are you hearing anything different? Still optimistic?
To me, this looks like Groundhog Day right now. It looks like May redone, which is the numbers look like shit out the gate, and everybody is holding out hope for the 4th of July. But I'm going to do my lay it out again, right? But there's a twist, okay? So I said a couple pods ago, something's going to break. Well, something broke. Well, what is that? Well, what broke is the blockade and the oil price. Oil is falling fast. It's down to $75 a barrel, I think. We're recording this on a Friday. I think it was, well, technically the markets are closed today, but I think it fell intraday down below 75. I think that's really important. And, if we look across the spectrum of issues, inflation running hot, well, this should cool forward inflation. And inflation's an expectations game, right? So I think inflation is going to cool. I think there's a high correlation between fuel prices and consumption of alcohol, right? In terms of boating, especially as we head towards summer, travel, and how we're thinking about our disposable income, because that is such a huge element, especially at the mid to lower end of the income spectrum in terms of consumable or available consumption dollars. And that's quite frankly our core consumer in the beer space. So I'm actually going to put on a little bit more optimistic hat. I don't know if we'll see it through the 4th, but I think as we move through July and August, I think we'll probably see the numbers improve. I don't like to make predictions, but I think that might be the surprise for the summer. And it's quite frankly, well, as long as you're not in Florida and Arizona, this is the haymaking season. Again, make hay while the sun's shining. Is that it?
That's it.
Did I walk my way back into it? Shit.
That right, sounds like it's supposed to be that.
That does sound more right. So yeah, and then at least some of the vibes coming out of the World Cup seem to be stronger than. I think people are kind of skeptical about what that would do. I think in some of these markets it might actually be doing something, especially where there's more, more Hispanic action going on too.
Vibes out of the World Cup are huge. Would second that. I was in the market this week with a touristy town, not connected or close to any World Cup, hours away from any World Cup, but activity. But lots of on-premise. I spent the whole day with an on-premise team lead, so lots of on-premise activity around the World Cup. All of the POS, temporary and all the permanent POS has been flipped over in that direction. Definitely well prepared as the operator I was with, and definitely seeing success from that as well too. Oil in the last month is down 26%. Ross is down to 76.54 right now. Went from 104 all the way down to 76, $75 right now. So big drop, which is good, and that, as you said, will slow down inflation potentially. They did. We just got to get these talks going. We get to get the Strait open, which is the most important thing probably from a crude oil price and from just stability on pricing. But then you got to get the talks going. So this is just a revert back into the chaos that it has been. So
you got to be careful with the oil price too, because some of it's supply and demand, but other piece of it, a big element of future or pricing of oil is future expectations of demand, which is tied to GDP growth across the planet. So it can be telling us one of two things. One is supply is back and it's coming back strong. That's good. It can also be telling us that demand's slowing. That's not good. So there's a counterbalance between, I think, the damage that was done by this inflationary surge by fuel prices, and the other side of the coin is, we're seeing all this huge investment in data centers and AI. We've got OpenAI coming in the fall. We've got Anthropic coming in the fall as IPOs. We saw what happened with SpaceX. So I think there's a huge push happening. At the same time, there's deceleration happening in what we call the real economy. So, look at China and their numbers. They were just absolute garbage. To me, they represent the real economy. They make everything. So, you've got this divergence happening and there's this tension. But I think through the summer, I think we'll benefit from this tension. I think there will be enough money sloshing around. I think oil prices are coming down. So I think we'll have a little bit of a sweet spot for the summer, which will be a good opportunity for us to kind of make up some of these sales from a volumetric perspective.
Mm-hmm. Also on the product side, Bapple and Capple, the value war is back as reported by Beer Marketers Insights. We want to talk about this a little bit. I found this stat incredible and very powerful. So one stat was 1 in 4 Busch Light Apple shoppers are first-time beer buyers, and 70% of the sales are incremental to the category. So what's cool about that, in my mind, is that this is genuinely additive. It's not distracting. It's not cannibalization. We're inviting 25% of the people in to buy beer for the first time, and 77% of the shoppers are additive as well. It's 2.5 million cases sold in the 6 weeks of scans. And then you've got also Capel, Keystone Light Apple. They're actually going to relaunch it in the fall as well. So Busch Light moves on to Busch Light. Is it Lime? Right? I think.
Historically, yeah. I think that's the case.
Busch Light moves on to Busch Light Lime. We've got Keystone Apple is probably sold out, moving on to its next step, which would then be a remix in the fall as well. Feedback from the market, Alicia, of you know, our Molson Coors clients up in your neck of the woods, where you live in Molson Coors' largest market share market and across the country. Busy, happy, people excited about it?
Yeah, I think everyone's excited about this. You know, for the last how many years we've been talking premiumization, and it's kind of funny to see these value brands, you know, be treated in the market the way that they are. So I think the reps lean into anything that has momentum. The saying "stack it high and watch it fly" is kind of what's happening out there. Salespeople like selling products that move, and if a brand is moving, they're excited to sell it regardless of whether it's premium or value or, you know, any other category. And consumers care whether a product tastes good, it feels fun, and it fits their budget. And right now, that's what Baffle and Capel are doing. They're checking all of those boxes.
On the innovation front too, I saw this week. These are two U-boats. One was, so we've talked about Superlight and Spikeade, these Gatorade drinks. So this is just working at a standard bar. This is U-boat from the delivery. It just happened to be here at the exact same time there's a delivery. This is U-boat from the delivery number one. All of this Superlight. So you've got half Coors Light, half Superlight as well. And then the next one that came in too was, this is the next U-boat, which was all Surfside actually half a little bit of Sun Cruiser, about half Sun Cruiser and half Superlight as well. The category is, this is what I noticed in the market. I was working with the distributor who sells, specifically the distributor who sells Spikeade. So they were moving a bunch of Spikeade, but Stateside's got a bunch of their Superlight moving as well too. So this is a fast, quick moving category for sure, is what I noticed this week in a huge way.
I think that, I didn't think it was the angle when you sent that on our Slack for the meeting. I thought you were going to take the angle of, my gosh, look at all this GP.
Well, there's that too. There's two sides of it. This is hyper premiumization, because these things are $10-11 a case in GP per CE. And it's also, you know, a brand new category that has really popped up out of nowhere in the last 18 months. I think Spikeade started like 18 months ago as a brand new product up in the Northeast. And they're looking like they might move 1 million cases for the year, which is a huge number out of the gate in the first 12 months. But huge GP, huge opportunity, and 2 U-boats cruising by while I was there. 2/3 of it,
Who's drinking all this shit? I mean, that was my other thought too, which was, who's drinking all this?
The word from the street is that it's zero carbonation. So there's zero carbonation to it.
Cool, it's flat.
It's low alcohol. I mean, we're carbonation millennials, right? The three of us love carbonation. I mean, I do, at least. Alicia might be different, but I do. And that new drinker, though, is not looking for carbonation the same way, or some people are not. But this is moving everywhere. Either Superlight or Spikeade was moving everywhere we were talking with clients this week, or customers this week.
Okay.
Brand new product, wild experience out the gate. And speaking of high GP, we had our friend Lester Jones flag some interesting data. So a few Fridays ago, the jobs report headline number looked fine, added about 503,000 jobs over the past 12 months, but household survey is telling a different story by gender. So the full-time employment for women is up almost 600,000 jobs, from May 2025 to May 2026, while full-time employment for men is down 1.3 million. So now if we think about that through how products are being indexed, and this is what Lester wanted to share with us and talk about, and kind of make sure that we got this picture. If we think about how gender indexes across different product segments, what do we know product segments that are struggling? Scotch, craft, whiskeys, just to name a few. I mean, some of the distillers out there have shut down their distillery manufacturers for the years. They're not going to make any new. And then moving across to more over-indexed female products, RTD, seltzers, wine, which wine is the only one I disagree with right now, because wine is kind of struggle bus for sure. Two outliers here, non-alc is a huge outlier. That energy drink category continues to grow, although while be over-indexing in men. And then the other one is really that, look at how over-indexed that RTD is, but very female over-index as well too. So Alicia, we were prepping for this. You had a different take on this.
Yeah, I did. So, first of all, I hate that whenever this happens and the data suggests that, purchasing power is shifting, the answer in a lot of cases is, well, let's make sure to switch the packaging to pink, right? And target those women consumers. But I see the categories as being more gender balanced. So I'm glad you put the slide on the screen.
You don't like being pandered to as a woman, Alicia?
And Lester even fell right into it. I mean, he used pink.
No, I was just trying to really give this some thought and like what trends really resonate with me personally, right? I like variety, I like convenience, products that fit different occasions, and those aren't female trends. They're just general consumer trends. And so I think it's, the question isn't like, how do we market to women? It's what can we learn from the consumers who are driving the categories that are growing? So I think for distributors, it's just a really good gut check to have the data in front of them to see, does my portfolio align with where we're experiencing growth? And are the sales programs that we're putting in front of the team focused on these segments that are gaining momentum? So less about gender for me and more about making sure your business evolves alongside the consumer.
Ross, on your end, any read here too?
I'm going to back Alicia up here. I mean, too bad Lester's not on here to defend himself. I'll say correlation isn't causation. And what I mean by that too is, let me throw out a counter thought or a counter theory. What we know is that if men are losing work, what we know is also that there's more and more dual household income. And we may be seeing more women forced isn't the right word, but compelled into the workforce to kind of balance out the finances of the family household. And that may actually lead to less women in the stores making the purchases. I'll give an anecdotal piece. I mean, 10 years ago, I was the only dude walking around the grocery store. Now I feel like it's close to 50-50, right? Because I think there's just, to maintain, the kind of the middle-class lifestyle, I think there's a lot of people are having to do the dual income, especially with kids. So my counter thought to that might be that you might actually see more men shopping just because, the typical roles in the household might be shifting over time as, we're forced from, again, I don't like the word forced, but compelled to have these dual income households.
What was always a big argument way back from the 90s around having more and more women join the workforce, we would have this plethora of additional resources in every family, right? And how much more additional dollars would they have? Meanwhile, what actually happened is that inflation continued to grow and that the overall cost of supporting a family increased as fast as the additional dollars came out to the families of dual income earners as well. And some argue, this is a little armchair experty, a little armchair economics, but some argue that this has actually been a negative result on the family experience because everything's cost more, and now, to use your term, compelled and forced families to become dual income just to survive and keep a middle income family lifestyle, where in the past, 70s, 80s, 60s, maybe in the early 90s, more easily to be able to obtain that middle income lifestyle on a single earner's family income. So really interesting. We'll see how much trouble I get with my wife around my opinions on this. And
Well, I think the key element there is maybe during the 70s and 80s, it was a choice. And it should always be a choice, right? The family unit should be able to make the choice. And, both people working, it could be the optimal play for a lot of families. But for some families, the concern is that they would choose otherwise, and then they're being compelled to go this way. So I think we need to be. I'm trying to be sensitive to that, what you're saying here, Bud, which is, you want to live in a world where everybody's got the choice to do what's right for their own family. Oh. You hate to be in a position where there's the economics are forcing something to happen to maintain the same style of life.
And the work has changed too. People have had an opportunity to not need to work in an office and be more remote. Our whole team is remote, as an example. We come from a remote culture in our organization at VXP, and others have been like that. That's provided an opportunity for folks to have dual incomes in different ways than what it would have been like in the early 90s and early 2000s, where the only option really was to go to work and to be out of the home on an everyday daily basis. But that has vastly changed, and there's a huge opportunity of people are small, single entrepreneurs that are working from home as a dad or a mom supporting their family that way as well. So it's kind of cool to see too. But Alicia, I like the attitude of that we don't like to be pandered to and just like, let's not make a bunch of purple and pink packaging, right? It needs to be a good product. At the end of the day, where our industry shakes out is regardless of what the product is or what you're trying to do with it. If it's good product and it tastes good, you're going to find your way to a consumer. And how that happens is really centered around how the liquid starts first, and then you work your way through the system from there. Last piece for today is that hemp. So we're still working our way through Delta 9. We're getting farther and farther into the year. And I wanted to throw this out to you, Ross, first around, I've talked to some hemp suppliers that are the Delta 9 manufacturers, brewers, whatever we want to call them, and talked to distributors. It sounds like if you're a larger player, so think Willie's Remedy, which I overdosed on that this week, by the way. I did too much of Harry from Beer Business Daily told me how much a microdose should be. I did triple. I was wrong. I thought I could take more. It was too much. And then two, those kinds of folks, Breeze, Willie's Remedy, they're going to come with a 0.4 to market. Like they're going to stay in the market in some way, shape, or form. The smallers, talking to another distributor or another manufacturer, they've got some other products, other kind of hemp based, but also some psychedelic mushrooms and some other additives that we've talked about, right? These more functional beverage stuff. They're going to strip their Delta 9 out and try to go to market with just that. So everybody on the supplier side has got a contingency plan. Beverage alcohol distributors have no contingency plan other than getting all their product picked out or selling it all out at the end of the cycle, right? My curiosity is, and this dovetails back into the first conversation, Ross, how many of these boutique or non-beer or beverage alcohol distributors pick up these hemp products come January 1, 2027? And it stays in market that way, because there's no reason why it just because the feds have banned it. I mean, we've banned marijuana and we've been making that and have, regular weed shops across the country, and nobody's going to jail for that. I don't think anybody's going to wake up and go to jail for Delta 9 January 2027 either.
I don't know. I think there's a difference between a pot shop and your local Kroger.
Local Kroger, yes, but the big stores aren't going to sell this stuff. But don't you I have to believe that, and I'm going to, I'm going to get on this wagon that if the hemp ban sticks,
go.
What's up?
Nothing. Keep going.
If the hemp ban sticks, we're going to see beer distributors and bev alcohol distributors stop selling it. Big chain stores stop selling it. Everything will move to the independent C store and independent shopper or independent store. and it'll get picked up and put on the shelf by a new group of distributors that are soda based, food based, and they're probably smaller and they're not as organized as the biggest of the big, AB and Molson Coors and beverage alcohol distributors.
I mean, you're going to have the states do something. They're not going to put product in stores that's federally illegal that the states don't have their backs.
You think so? You think we're going to hold that all the way through?
But I'm going to counterpoint this and say I still am holding out hope that the feds do something here. There's just too much money on the line here. But we're running out of time. I mean, the August session's coming, and then Trump's going to get murdered in the midterms, and nothing's going to get done after that.
Oh, we think Trump's going to get crushed in the midterms.
I mean, that's my running hypothesis. I mean, we'll see what happens. But I mean, that's even if every projection is that he's going to lose the House, right? I mean, there's nobody thinking that he's going to keep the House, and most likely he's going to lose the Senate, even under conservative estimates right now, even from the conservative side. So what you're going to end up with is a lame duck session for the last two years, and nothing's going to get done. So we're running out of time.
One would argue lame duck session would happen no matter what. Typically, presidents in the last 2 years of a two-term president where they can't rerun again always run into that trap, regardless of whether they have House and Senate control as well, too. So that was more than likely going to happen because they're going to spend the next 24 months starting in January jockeying for who's going to take over after Trump. That's the whole news cycle is going to take over for that.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe this is bipartisan too. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's money. So one thing the Democrats and the Republicans can agree on is spending more of our money than we have.
Alicia, any bandwagon you want to jump on here with what's going to happen with Delta 9 near the end of the year here? We're almost at the halfway point, so I wanted to bring it back up.
I really think that so many distributors are just holding out hope. Like, hope is the strategy right now, and it's a terrible strategy. Every distributor that I've talked to at least understands, their exposure and that they're focusing on protecting their core business. But at the end of the day, there's just too much uncertainty around this topic and the timeline in which a decision needs to be made. So
this is the first round of calls that I was on that hope ran into a wall. All the calls I was on this most recent month planning for June was planning for how to run the inventory down to zero. Yeah. And that's the first time I've had those conversations. Before it was, this is going to get resolved. Everything's going to be fine. This is the first calls where we have a plan to run the inventory down, which means that everybody's accepted the fact that this is coming to an end. At least the people that I talk to. And that's a small segment of the market across a small segment of distributors. But the shift this month was pretty noticeable.
Yeah, that's what I kind of wanted to poke at was here with the shift and what that noticeable shift may or may not look like. So it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. Got a lot of moving parts for the rest of the year. Timeline moves forward or moves closer and closer every single day. So if you like what we're doing, continue to listen, and subscribe, share with a friend. You can hit us up with any kind of questions at info@vxptech.com. That's info@vxptech.com. Ross and Alicia, thanks for joining us today. You too, Rock. And for everybody out there in listening land, have a beer this weekend, right? That'd be a good idea. Moving in and go watch a World Cup game, right?
And call Mike. He's just sitting around looking at some mountains, so give him a call.
That's right. We didn't tell anybody where Mike is. Mike is on the tour of the West. He got in a truck, went in his pop-up trailer, and is driving around out. Has anybody heard from him?
Not a word.
Sometimes, yeah.
You've heard from him.
He's still alive, Alicia?
He's still alive.
Okay.
Well.
He hasn't been eaten by a grizzly bear yet?
Yeah, that was my thing. No eaten by a bear yet?
We still got a week.
Where was he when you talked to him?
Gosh, I can't remember. I don't know, somewhere out there. So
he's driving all around somewhere.
Yeah, he's all over.
I can't believe he drove from Michigan to the Tetons.
They wanted to do the whole tour, man. They want to do the whole tour.
Oh, that's a hell of a drive towing a trailer.
He wanted to do the drive.
Family. I think when you add that part, then you realize how far of a drive it is.
Yes, that slows you down.
It does slow you down, for sure. Well, thanks for joining us, you two. Everybody on listener land, cheers. And